Imagine losing your father and your grandmother on the exact same day. Imagine being 8 years old, waking up to the sound of relatives crying in the next room, not knowing that by the time the sun went down, you would face not one but two devastating losses in a single afternoon. That is the moment that shaped everything about Lamar Jackson. Not the MVP trophies, not the Heisman, not the record-breaking seasons in Baltimore. It was a single catastrophic day in 2005 inside a public housing project in Pompano Beach, Florida, that built the toughest quarterback in the National Football League. And if you think you know this story, I promise you, you do not know the half of it. Lamar Demetrius Jackson Jr. was born on January 7, 1997, and grew up in the heart of one of the most economically distressed sections of Pompano Beach, Florida, in a public housing project known as Golden Acres. This was not a neighborhood of opportunity. This was a neighborhood where survival required a different kind of toughness, where kids grew up fast because the world around them demanded it. When Lamar was just 8 years old, his father, Lamar Jackson Sr., and his grandmother both passed away on the very same day to funerals. One family, 1 week. One 8-year-old boy who had no choice but to figure out what kind of man he was going to become. Jackson has spoken openly about the moment that altered his outlook on adversity for the rest of his life. He remembered waking up to relatives in tears and learning his father was gone. Then, roughly an hour later, his mother, Felicia Jones, received another call that stunned the entire household. His grandmother had also passed. In his own words, he said it was crazy, that he was hurt, that he was crying a lot. He said he loved them both to death and that he still tried to make them happy. Let that sit for a moment. An 8-year-old child channeling double grief into motivation. He later said in his Heisman Trophy acceptance speech that it hurt him, that he wanted to cry real bad. But his mother was the real soldier. She told him not to cry. And he said he would remember that for the rest of his life. That was the foundation, built not in a weight room, not on a practice field, but in the middle of tragedy that would have broken most people completely. Felicia Jones was suddenly responsible for raising for children alone in Pompano Beach, Florida. She demanded strength from her son long before he understood its meaning. Jackson has described that experience as the foundation of his mental toughness, forged before football ever entered the picture. Felicia Jones is one of the most remarkable figures in the entire history of this sport. She has received almost none of the credit she deserves. She raised for children without help in one of the toughest environments in South Florida. She worked, she sacrificed, and she decided early on that her son was not going to let his talent go to waste. Lamar Jackson never really liked football? Not as an 8-year-old, but his mother signed him up to play. And when he immediately scored touchdowns and outran everybody on the field that first season, he changed his mind entirely. That is when Felicia Jones made a decision that would eventually change the history of the NFL. She came up with a plan to maximize his obvious gifts. Jackson started working with a local trainer named Van Warren, known around the area as Peanut. During those workouts, Jones sat on a metal bench and quietly observed every single quarterback drill Warren ran, taking mental notes the entire time. She then made Jackson do the same drills at home. But Felicia Jones did not stop at observing. What she did next is the kind of story that seems almost impossible until you understand exactly who this woman was. She supplemented the professional training with something else entirely, tackling drills. Lamar and his little brother Jamar put on their equipment and went into the backyard, and then their mother put on equipment too. She had them run, and then she tackled them. This was not a light jog and a tap on the shoulder. This was a woman with real athletic ability throwing her young sons to the ground in the backyard of a house in Pompano Beach so they would know what real contact felt like. Jackson recalled the moment simply. He said she was an athlete. She used to play basketball. She saw what they were able to do. And she was just making them tougher because she was older and she brought power they were not used to feeling. From age 8, that meant working out 6 days a week. Saturdays were his only day to rest. Think about that. While other kids in Pompano Beach were outside playing or watching television on a Friday afternoon, Lamar Jackson was running drills his mother designed from memory after watching a professional trainer work 6 days a week at 8 years old. The discipline that you see when number 8 walks to the line of scrimmage in Baltimore with complete calm in a stadium roaring at full volume was not a gift from genetics. It was installed in him, rep by rep, in a backyard in Florida by a woman who refused to let poverty or grief define her children's future. Among many other important life lessons, Felicia Jones based her teachings to Lamar on what she called the Super 8: God, prayer, faith, family, education, sacrifice, character, discipline. 8 principles for a boy who would wear the number 8 his entire career. Of all the workouts, Jackson had a special dislike for the heavy ball drills because they were so difficult to get through. He complained about these most of all, yet those drills had perhaps the biggest impact on his development. His former high school coach Rick Swain later noted that Jackson's core strength was one of his defining physical attributes. He said Jackson's balance was a fundamental reason he was so difficult to bring down. The secret to Lamar Jackson's elusiveness was not just speed. It was the core strength his mother built into him through drills he hated as a child. Now here is where the story takes a turn that most people never cover. Lamar Jackson was not always on a straight path to stardom. Before he became a high school star in Florida, he was a struggling student without even a starting spot. Jackson, a good student in junior high, arrived in high school and got swallowed by the transition. His grades started slipping. He had no starting position. He was a kid with enormous talent who was getting lost. That did not sit well with Felicia Jones. She moved Jackson 30 miles up Florida's coast to Boynton Beach High School for a fresh start. Another difficult decision: uprooting your son, pulling him from his environment, betting that a new start would unlock what the old environment was burying. Even at Boynton Beach, his then head coach Rick Swain delivered a blunt message: get your grades right, or there would be no football. Jackson got his grades right, and when he did, something extraordinary happened. Over the course of his junior and senior seasons at Boynton Beach, Jackson threw for more than 2,200 yards with 31 touchdowns. He also rushed for more than 1,600 yards with 22 touchdowns, according to Britannica. Scouts started paying attention. Major programs came calling. But even in recruitment, Lamar Jackson faced resistance that would have discouraged anyone without his background. Even Louisville head coach Bobby Petrino initially did not see a quarterback when he reviewed Jackson's film. He saw the athleticism. He saw the runs, but he did not see a quarterback. The solution came through Jackson's connection with Louisville wide receivers coach Lamar Thomas. Thomas had Jackson rework his highlight tape to showcase his arm talent. Including a 70-yard throw, Petrino watched the new film for just a few minutes. Then he asked, "Who the heck is that?" Before you keep watching, if you are new to the Inventor realm, this is where we break down the real stories behind the greatest athletes on the planet. The struggles you never see on highlight reels. The moments that actually built these champions. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this one. Because the best ones are coming, Jackson committed to Louisville. Coach Bobby Petrino had made a promise to Jackson and his mother that he would play quarterback and no other position. That promise mattered enormously because other schools had tried to move him to wide receiver or defensive back based on his speed alone. Felicia Jones had fought through enough already. She was not going to let the football world strip her son of his identity too. In his freshman year at Louisville, Jackson threw for 1,840 yards. He threw 12 touchdowns. He also had 8 interceptions. while rushing for 960 yards and scoring 11 rushing touchdowns. He led the Cardinals to an 8-5 record. He then led Louisville to a victory over Texas A&M in the Music City Bowl. He was named the game's MVP. The doubters were not quieted yet, but the signal was beginning to come through clearly. Then came the sophomore season that changed college football permanently. Against Florida State, ranked number 2 in the country, Jackson rushed for 146 yards. He reached the end zone 4 times in a stunning blowout victory. He immediately became the Heisman runner. He also moved Louisville to their highest national ranking since 2006. The moment was extraordinary. A kid from a public housing project in Pompano Beach, raised by a single mother, dismissed by coaches who could not see past his athleticism, was now torching the second-ranked team in America in front of a national audience? Jackson's sophomore campaign at Louisville vaulted him into college football history. He threw for 3,543 yards. He threw 30 touchdowns with only 9 interceptions. He also rushed for 1,571 yards and scored 21 rushing touchdowns. He became the first player from Louisville ever to win the Heisman Trophy, according to Britannica. He became the youngest ever recipient of the Heisman Trophy, claiming the award at just 19 years old. And yet, even that historic moment did not silence everyone. When he declared for the 2018 NFL Draft, the football world almost immediately began questioning whether he could play quarterback at the professional level. Many draft pundits doubted Jackson's quarterback abilities. They suggested that he switch positions to wide receiver because of his athleticism. Scouts, analysts, commentators, people who had never seen a player like him, defaulted to telling him to change who he was to become something smaller. To fit a mold that he was already breaking, he refused. Jackson was selected by the Baltimore Ravens with the final pick in the first round of the 2018 NFL Draft, pick number 32. And within months, he was starting playoff games. At 21, he became the youngest NFL quarterback ever to start a playoff game. The following year, he did not just play well. He obliterated records that had stood for decades. He broke the single-season rushing record for a quarterback, rushing for 1,206 yards, while also leading the NFL with 36 touchdown passes. He became the first quarterback since Michael Vick to rush for over 1,000 yards in a season. He was then voted the NFL's most valuable player for the 2019 season unanimously. Only the second player in NFL history to win the award without a single dissenting vote. But what matters most is not the record. What matters is what Lamar Jackson said after he achieved it all. He said he gives the Lord all the praise, all the glory, all the honor because of what he is. He said he could have been doing anything. He said he was just grateful, talking to God throughout the day. Just thankful to be standing where he was. That is not a press conference answer. That is a man who grew up in Golden Acres, who lost his father and grandmother in one afternoon at 8 years old, who was told to switch positions, who was picked last in the first round, standing in the light of everything his mother trained him to survive, and simply being grateful to be standing at all. Lamar Jackson is now the all-time leader in quarterback rushing yards in NFL history. He is regarded as one of the greatest dual-threat quarterbacks of all time, a 2-time MVP whose records may never be broken, a career built entirely on the decision of one woman in Pompano Beach, who decided that grief was not going to define her son. Felicia Jones tackled her children in the backyard. She designed workouts from memory. She moved her son to a new school when the old one was holding him back. She demanded grades before football. She built the Super 8 into her son's character before he ever stepped on a high school field. And the result is the most electrifying quarterback this sport has ever seen. The next time Lamar Jackson scrambles out of a pocket that should have resulted in a sack, shifts his weight at the last second to make a defender miss in a way that seems physically impossible, and then plants and launches a perfect spiral 40 yards downfield, understand what you are actually watching. You are watching 6 days a week of backyard training with a mother who wore pads. You are watching the mental toughness of an 8-year-old boy who cried for his father and then was told to keep going. You are watching every rejection, every doubter, every analyst who told him he was not a quarterback, compressed into one split second of perfection. Lamar Jackson did not become great in spite of his difficult childhood. He became great because of it. Because Felicia Jones made sure that no matter what the world threw at her son, he would already know how to take the hit and keep moving forward. That is the story of number 8. And if this video reminded you why sports are about so much more than what happens on the scoreboard, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And make sure you are subscribed to the Inventor realm so you never miss the stories that actually matter.